Joining us now is Daniel Sullivan. He's the director for Africa, Asia, and the Middle East at Refugees International. And I want to thank you for joining us. Earlier this summer, you were in the area, and we wanted to get your perspective. I will also say that Antony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, just as us underscored in the last few days, that Sudan, right now, this hour, is the most grave humanitarian crisis in the world. 25 million facing acute hunger, 10 million displaced. You say that despite that, this crisis is largely ignored. Why?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why, a lot of different things happening in the world. But when you look at the pure scale of the suffering, as you just pointed out, the largest displacement crisis in the world and now the largest hunger crisis, there already has been a determination that famine is present in parts of Darfur, and that's likely in many other areas as well. So you have this hunger, you have an atrocity determination that was made by the United States earlier, and these atrocities and the hunger continue and are getting worse. So really, there's no excuse for not getting more attention to what's happening in Sudan.
And again, we want to highlight just how many things are going on. The floods, obviously, this is just the latest. Obviously, the most grave and critical is the conflict going on. I want to show everyone right now just those 10 million displaced. Some are refugees, some are internally displaced, and the numbers are staggering. And you can see from the map we're about to show you that they're just going wherever they can get a safe spot. You were in the Nuba Mountains bordering South Sudan earlier this summer. You know, as you describe it, it was a window into the larger crisis. Hundreds of thousands escaping, mass atrocities again, and now scrounging for food, the basics. What did you hear from them about what they've been through and what they fear will happen in the coming months?
Yeah, exactly. The Nuba Mountains, which is bordering South Sudan, I had the opportunity to travel there earlier and interviewed people that were arriving from all across the country, and so that's why I said really it's a window into what's happening, because there are people arriving from Khartoum who talk about leaving the attacks by the Rapid Support Forces, the paramilitary group that's fighting Sudanese armed forces, and then coming into areas where they were bombed by the Sudanese armed forces, and then having to go through gauntlets of checkpoints and having their things taken along the way. And many of them have been displaced multiple times. I spoke to a man who just arrived from further to the west who had gone several days without eating. And many of the people who are in the camps, they've seen children dying along the way. And even when they get to the camps in the Numa Mountains, relative safety, they're surviving on leaves from trees. And as I said, many are multiple times displaced. Another woman said she left Khartoum because of the war. She left another city, Kadugli, because of hunger. So, and just to put a finer point on it, since the time I was there, the authorities in the Nuba Mountains have now said that famine is present there as well. So it is a place of refuge, but far from untouched by the tragedy that's happening in Sudan.
Yeah, and from the pictures and the video your organization has provided, you can certainly see this is not hospitable territory, and again, going through drought conditions with very little aid getting in. About that aid, Blinken again had a statement out on Monday saying that some aid has been getting in, but the other thing the U.S. and its allies are trying to do is broker a peace deal. Talks took place in Switzerland last week. In terms of the outcome there, do you have optimism that in the coming months this can be rectified? And again, I want to state Khartoum. Khartoum has been absolutely destroyed in this conflict.
That's right. And, it's the attention that Sudan is getting and the lack of high level attention is appalling. I mean, I acknowledge the talks that happened, and there were some very positive things that came out of it in terms of actually getting the parties that have leverage with the warring parties together and seeing the concrete outcome of trucks coming in. But the fact is that the parties themselves, the countries were not able to bring the parties to themselves together at the table, and that these new deliveries of aid never should have been stopped in the first place. They're tenuous, and there's a huge question as to how much they can be scaled up to reach. So there's really a need to go beyond this. I think we see an opportunity with the UN General Assembly coming up in a couple of weeks in New York, where we'll see world leaders Again, great to see the special envoy for the U.S. To Sudan, Tom Perriello, and to see Secretary Blinken getting involved, calling directly to General Burhan. But we're yet to hear anything significantly from President Biden. And just given the scale of this tragedy, we really need to see that stepped up attention, and particularly the bad actors like the United Arab Emirates, who are supplying weapons still to the RSF that is committing atrocities in Darfur. So that needs to be called out. There needs to be a much greater surge of diplomatic efforts and support, including cross-border aid and support for local groups.
And again, as you noted, the scale of this is enormous and will take some years to rectify. We thank you for your insights there, and we'll continue to follow it. Appreciate it.
Thank you.